Wonderful. Well, should we make a start then? So the way this will work, first of all, thank you all so much for putting your hand up and agreeing to review Alex Allwood's book. And that's what it's all about today, is having a chat. And I'm envious, Katie, you've got your cup of coffee there. Really envious. Having a chat about the book and what we've taken from it, what we've enjoyed about it, questions and views we've got on it. But then halfway through the session, Alex will join us so we can put the questions directly to her. There's 6 of us, but there's Gary as well, but we'll see Gary in a short while, see if that works. I'm not going to, I've read the book and I love it, but this is for you to put your questions forward. So, we'll spend the time doing that. If I get a chance at the end, great. But actually, if there's 5 or 6 of us, it gives you 5 minutes each to talk with Alex because, you've taken the time to read the books. We want to give you that platform. Nice. So if we work our way around, I'm going to go from, as I can see the screen. So Jennifer, would you mind introducing yourself and your involvement in the world of customer centricity, please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jen Fitch, and I work for Paychecks. It's the payroll company that's based out of Rochester, New York. I'm a voice of the customer analyst, part of the VOC program, and looking to, I decided recently that I wanted to pursue my CCXP, so trying to get more involved in things like this. So that's what prompted me to join these.
Hello. Well, I co-founded CX Talent with Joe Van Eemsdijk, who many of you know already, in 2012. And so I'm not actually a customer experience practitioner myself. But I've been sort of living happily in the world of CX for coming up to 10 years now. So, we spend our days talking to all sorts of different customer experience practitioners. And so we get an idea of lots of different parts of the process. And I really enjoy it.
Hi all. I'm Katie. I am the founder of Cultivate Customer Experience by Design, a customer experience consultancy. I set up back in May, so just at the kind of cusp of the pandemic. And it's been an absolute roller coaster, but I've been in the world of CX for about 10 years. I am a CTXP, member of the CXPA, and I particularly love this subject of empathy because particularly when I was working in the world of debt management and debt collection, empathy could just not be more important and more significant. So I love having this conversation and continuing it forward.
Alicia, over to you. You're coming to us from Canada, is that correct?
Yes, I'm living in Toronto, Canada. So I'm originally from Venezuela. So I'm starting also my consulting CX Connector as part of the CXPA and customer experience specialist.
Yeah. So I work for a company called the Royal Air Force Charitable Trust Enterprises. We're basically an events-based company, primarily known for the UK's probably largest air shows, the Royal International Air Tattoo. Unfortunately, we've just had to cancel for the 2nd year in a row. My role throughout the year is marketing and customer experience, and then actually at the show, I am in charge of a team of about 120 volunteers, primarily responsible for making sure everyone has a good time while they're with us.
I am Eileen Machado, a project manager for clientship and philanthropy or partner technology. And I've volunteered as the co-host behind the scenes of this endeavor.
I'm Gary Gormley. I am the owner and founder of Fab Solutions. And Fab Solutions is a contact center based consultancy that helps contact centers improve their customer experience. We do this by looking at the 4 fundamental pillars of customer experience, which I term people, process, leadership, and technology. So my role within that is to try and help contact centers be better and do better by joining up all those things harmoniously so that it delivers a great customer experience.
There we go. Lovely. Great.
At least, sorry.
That's okay. That's no problem at all. Okay. So let's work our way around then. So Jennifer, give us a kind of, your elevator pitch for the book. What did you think of it?
I thought it was great. It was an easy read, and she gave so many great examples of companies out there and different things that they've done to incorporate empathy and how they were able to change the customer experience for the better. It hit home recently because I recently had a manager come to me saying that, you know, we've made some changes and all of our other metrics have improved. Why hasn't our NPS improved? And asking us to look at other data points to see why. And it's like, well, we don't want to look at other metrics and other data points to see why. We want to look at what the customer is saying, hear their voice. We want to look at their verbatim comments in the surveys. We want to call and have that closed loop process and ask those probing questions to see what is the root of the problem. And she just hit on that in this book through the whole thing. So that really hit home. And I loved some of the points, some of the ideas that she had to incorporate that. Some of the stuff I would love to take back and share with, you know, our leaders to see if it's something they can incorporate. Even just something as simple as the customer minute. The first minute of every meeting, you share a customer story. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, so a good blend there. I was still in one's thunder, so thank you very much, Jennifer. But kind of, I'm nodding massively there on all the points you raised. So, Kate, over to you. What was your take on the book?
I really enjoyed it. I found it, you know, again, an easy read and a really enjoyable one. And I like the balance of sort of high-level ideas and then actual, quite practical advice that she managed to break down. And one of the things that really struck me was the point about the importance of leadership involvement in cultural change. And I really like the example of, well, there were several examples in the book, but there's one of Barack Obama, which was really a really strong example.
Wasn't that good? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. And I think it was about, if executives can lead by example, that opens the door for other people.
Yeah,
and that really resonated with me.
That's really good point. Really good point. Thank you, Kate. And I think the Obama one for me was a real standout because you can recognise the man. Katie, so what was your take on it? So Katie is a contributor to her books. It'd be interesting to get an author's perspective on an author's book. But what did you think of customer empathy?
Well, firstly, I mean, just how beautiful does the book feel? I mean, as a customer, my own customer experience, it's wonderful. I mean, I loved physically picking this book up. It's just brilliantly produced. But to echo some of the points that have already been made, I really liked the structure of the book. I liked how it incorporated all those great examples, and not just necessarily organizational examples, but people examples. So really like making it so widely understood. And again, going back to the point of the structure, I really enjoyed how, there's a lot of kind of theoretical conversation throughout with the practical examples, but then right at the end, almost to summarize it, the very clear steps that you can take to incorporate empathy more in your organization. So yeah, I think fantastic, really, really interesting read. And also, I think customer empathy, it can be often quite simplified. So I really did enjoy the fact that she elaborated with so many examples.
Yeah, really good point. It's great, isn't it, to get those so how do I do that, and then she just hits you with them at the end. So it's great, wasn't it? Thank you, Katie. Alicia, what was your take on Alex's book?
Yeah, so like one of the ideas that I like is the theme that is coming back also in customer experience and around in the marketplace is the why, coming from the why, and explaining that in a more practical way on what it means in customer experience and the techniques that you use to produce that empathy with your customers and with your employees within the organization. I also like to see the business not only by profit, but through the human lenses. So it's very important to have that in the culture. And I also like, for the points that the other panelists had made about the techniques, I love that part. And actually, I will ask one of those questions for her, how she will apply for a real-time scenario. Yeah.
Excellent. I think it's a real honesty to the way she's written that she's happy to share and give stuff away. It's really good, isn't it? So Sarah, I mean, you're a kind of someone who benefits from, you know, the advice in these sorts of things. How was it for you?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, you know, as everyone said, really easy to read. It's got, I mean, just so many light bulb moments while I was sort of reading it. It was like, why didn't I think of that? I've thought about that in the past, but actually never put it into action. But now this has kind of sort of focused my mind a little bit more. I've been on furlough pretty much for the last year due to the shows being cancelled, and I've learned when I read a lot of books, my memory is obviously going, and the best thing I can do is actually have page markers in my books I read, so that I know what I want to refer back to. And I did a quick count up of the ones in customer empathy, and I've 142 markers on this one, which is actually more than pages.
Yeah, that's right. So that's wonderful.
You can see that it's certainly one that I'm going to be referring back to again and again, because there's just so many brilliant, you know, ideas and suggestions for taking it forward. Yeah,
because there's so many nuggets, but actually it's still a narrative, isn't there? It's not just previously we read Adrian Swinscoe's Punk CX, and he makes no apology for the fact it's like another album. Every page is an album. Here's a thing, here's a thing, here's a thing. And it was quite refreshing to have this punch. But with this one, there's a narrative that runs through it. It all fits together. She's really thought about how it connects together. So I love that 142. Brilliant. There
are a few pages that don't have any.
Oh, really? My God.
Looking back through, there are a fair few pages that have 3 points to go back to.
Brilliant. So Eileen, can we hear what Gary thought about it?
To review the book Customer Empathy by Alex Allwood. And it was a great book, and there were 2 key elements that stood out for me when I was reading it. And I thought, this is very true, and it's very true of certain contact centres that I've worked in. And we look in the contact centre world of leading and lagging measures. And there was a particular chapter around humanising scores that really stood out for me. And quite often we can get into that cycle of just looking at the numbers and treating customers as numbers rather than looking at the things that underpin those scores. And when they're positive, we're generally quite happy that they're good. But actually, I think there's a really important part of dissecting some of that information and actually looking at the root cause of why we're doing so well. What specifically is it that customers enjoy? How are we performing better? And how can we do even better to see those scores go higher? And actually looking at the human elements behind that, I think is a really powerful activity to do when things are good. So actually when things aren't so good, you can understand where you've been and what you maybe have done differently to do that. And then the other part that really resonated for me was on the section that we talked about in terms of purpose needs action. I thought that was really, really powerful. And I've seen it in organisations before where we have values, we have mission statements, we have purposes, but actually the correlation between that and the exec board and what's happening on the front line can be very, very different. So I think if you've got a really clear purpose and a clear vision and a clear mission, all of those things need to then layer throughout the whole of the organisation so that you've got a real congruent message and congruent activity of how you're going to deliver on that purpose. So purpose needs action was an extremely powerful part for me. So I thought that was really, really useful. So great job, Alex. Thank you very much.
We've got a couple of minutes before Alex joins us. I wanted to get your views on this. I felt like I knew Alex. I felt I could hear her talking. I don't often feel like that with business books, but she felt like someone I could trust. And I wondered if it was the topic or the way she'd written. Did anyone else get that sense?
I really liked the way that she said that she'd had her strengths scored, and she expected to have empathy really high up on the list. But in fact, it was strategic, and that's at the bottom. And I think her point about working on that muscle and building it up was really useful. It shows you can put time into it, and you can build your empathy skills.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So I think I've often heard kind of people say you've either got it or you haven't, and kind of what she was saying was no, actually, you develop this, you develop it over time. So that's a good point. Anyone else got a view on that in terms of understanding, feeling the author coming off the page?
Yeah, I think because it was easy to read, I think that sort of showed that she kind of understands what she's writing about, which is always a plus point, I think. And yeah, you do kind of feel her now. I mean, it was like sort of having a conversation with someone rather than sitting reading a book on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said, Sarah, there's things in there. You kind of, when you use the word light bulb moment, it's kind of I could connect what she was saying to things that I've seen practiced and we've implemented, and it was great to kind of just connect it back to a bigger framework. I mean, emotional intelligence is a key topic in customer centricity, but she really, she just nailed her topic. There's a danger, I think, with these things. You can just drift, but she didn't. She just kept, and I must confess, when I picked up the book, first of all, part of me thought, can we get through 140 pages on this topic? And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if there's Customer Empathy 2 that comes out, because, the examples she got, I'm sure other people say, oh, we've got examples as well. Anyone else got any other points they want to raise on the book? Because we're waiting for Alex to join us, and it's midnight there, I think, there. So she might be, I'm not sure what she might be doing at that time, but it might be a couple of minutes. So anyone's got any other points they want to raise on the book? I mean, Katie, you spoke about the aesthetics of the book, and everyone said easy read. I mean, what do we mean by easy read?
I think for me, it's what I think, Sarah, you hit the nail on the head when you said conversational. It came across that with so many examples. It came across very conversational, and I'd be curious to know, actually, did she, as she was writing this book, did she have all of these fantastic relatable examples kind of floating around that she could just pick from, or did she actually have to go out and physically research and find these examples? Because it just continued to astound me how many great examples very naturally fit into each part of the book. And if she didn't have them floating around from her past knowledge, it feels like that would have been a heck of a lot of work to go out and find these on top.
That's a really good point, actually. It'd be good to ask her that, because they're not the sort of things, they're not hard and fast things, they're the soft stuff, aren't they, that kind of gets away from you. So maybe her receptors have always been on to kind of picking it up. But I think, if you were just to start looking at this, it'd be interesting. Maybe this has been a book many years in the writing. But that was my other consideration, was obviously this was written pre-pandemic. Did it feel dated because of that, or did it feel more relevant because of that? What are your views on that?
Relevant. I think it's more relevant that the conversation is going that way, right? Humanizing everything, the technology, the processes, the metrics, get that human aspect within your organization, and sharing with, seeing your business with that lens is most important nowadays, I think, than before the pandemic. So,
so is this sorry?
Yeah, and the other part, no, it's okay. And the other part also that I like is now is more about using the verbatim, as Sarah said, about putting together that what the customer is saying actually, and aligning that with the hard metrics, right? So put that qualitative data within the quantitative data together. And I think that part is also, is not saying in that way in the book, but it's the thoughts that comes to me when I was reading it.
Excellent. I mean, do you think it's something that, are we talking about organizations here that need to be being more empathetic? Is that what it is? Or is it just the individuals who are empathetic? And how does that work?
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, are we talking about organizations having, can organizations have empathy, or is it just the individuals within the organizations that can have the empathy?
Well, I think it's more about the organization itself, because the human aspect goes beyond the organization, right? So it's like the human experience more than just the customer. So it's everything that is involved, also if you map the journey or the aspects that you interact with the company is also within the community. And so those things bringing everything in, right?
Sure.
From the outside in, and be aware of not only your organization, but the changes that are around that could affect your business. And that is part of the society and the human aspect. So I think that is an important part to bring into the culture of the organization.
And in terms of the practicality of it, I mean, she gives a really good selection of, kind of ideas at the end. I mean, I guess those of you sitting, helping other organizations, those of you sitting in organizations, could you see those being possible? Were they just ideas, or could you actually see them being implemented in your organization?
I think definitely implemented. I think, there wasn't anything in there that felt too much of a stretch. I think for the most, I suppose, evolved version of an organization. So obviously there's people on a different timeline who are, really buying into the whole prospect of empathy and developing it within their teams. And there are other people who will be very early on that journey. But I think everything that Alex mentions in her book could be something that could be introduced at early stages to help build the development of the organization.
Well, Alex, we're delighted that you've managed to transcend the fiber optics and arrive in our room. I do apologize. I couldn't see you hanging out there. So I'm sorry if you felt you were stuck in a corridor somewhere. I think we're all a little bit in love with you, Alex, after reading your book. So so thank you. Well, look, I don't want to hog the floor. I'm going to hand you over to our guests who have got a series of questions I'd like to pose to you. Okay, so I'll start as we have done already. So Jennifer, feel free to introduce yourself to Alex and then go away with your question.
Hey, Alex. I'm Jen. I work for in the VOC program for a payroll company in the United States. I loved your book. So many points that you made really hit home, and I loved all, of the examples and ideas that you gave of how to incorporate customer empathy throughout the organization. One of the questions that I had that I was hoping that maybe you could talk a little bit more about is the journey mapping. And doing that through the customer's eyes instead of through the organization's eyes.
Because many times we start off with journey mapping by gathering, our peers together in the organization, gathering the line managers for the different business units. And we say, come on, we're going to journey map. We're getting this new voice of customer platform. And we need to map the customer journey to understand the stages and steps so that we can put in our signposts and measure, using customer scores. And what happens through that process is completely through the organisation's perspective. It doesn't include the customer at all. And I think that there is organisations have started to recognise this and are going back to basics a little bit and mapping their customer journey through the customer's perspective. And that's going to mean that you go to a place where you're starting that dialogue, you're starting that conversation, you're starting listening to customers and hearing what they have to say about their experience with you from their perspective and in their own words, which is very different to, what you would normally do in an organisation in regards to customer listening. You're actually doing what we call qualitative research, and you're undertaking in-depth interviews or contextual inquiry. We're doing observation, and you're looking and observing, and you're hearing, and you're asking questions to find out what the customer's experience is. And through those questions, you're going to be hearing a lot of, the lows, the pain points, the gaps in the service, but you're also going to be hearing those moments of truth as well. Jen, you asked me, what's the difference between a B2C journey map in your one of your questions. And there is would you like me to go down that path?
Yeah.
And there's are you into B2B or B2C?
I'm B2B.
At the end of the day, you know, the journey map makes, whether you're B2B or B2C, the journey map makes, you know, very complex experiences simple. I mean, you think about the customer's experience now. You've got interactions, you've got touch points, you've got pre, during, post experience interactions, you've got digital, you've got non-digital, you've got human, and you've got non-human. Now that makes for a very complex experience these days. And so customer journey mapping brings that simplicity to the customer's experience, because enabling people across the organization, whether they're customer facing or non-customer facing, this helps them understand the customer's experience from the customer's perspective.
Brilliant, brilliant.
And, you know, the magic of a customer map is that it uses both functional and emotive language. And it uses the functional, for example, the stages and the steps and the touch points, all that functional stuff. But it also uses emotion, and great customer journey maps have what's called an emotion graph on there. And this is a game changer for organisations. I've seen when the map's been stretched a lot along the walls, whether it be in the boardroom or the working room, I've seen people, teams self-organise around their part of the journey. They talk about the experience, they run their fingers over the emotion graph. You can see this leaning into the experience and a physical connection to that experience. And so that visual representation really helps them understand that experience and creates an emotional connection with the customer's experience.
Alex, thank you for bringing that off the wall. That's wonderful. Brilliant. Thank you.
I'll keep going. But
there you go. We got to get through these questions, so I'll have to cut across you. We said the book felt very conversational, and I can see why now. So that's great. I say that in a good way. Kate, can I come to you for your question, please?
Hi, Alex. I'm Kate. Thank you very much. Really.
Oh, great. Hi, Kate. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. My question was around the way you describe listening and the importance of listening as being quite physical and mirror neurons and all that sort of stuff. It made it very human and very one-to-one. But what's your thoughts around managing that now so much is online?
I don't know your experience, Kate, but, you know, I struggle with this Zoom. I'm sort of, after 12 months, this is just between you and I, of course, getting comfortable with it. I find it exhausting. And sometimes I can find it a bit muddling as well. And I'm an extrovert, and I need human-to-human connection. And so when we took everything online, for me, there was a lot missing in with the way I connect and communicate with people. I mean, you know, when we have an online relationship with somebody, we really only have two things. We only have, you know, what we're seeing and what we're hearing, and what is flattened out is everything else. What's flattened out is really the tone of voice, the modulation. You can't see, for example, unless my voice is a little bit quiverly, that I might be really nervous. You can't, because that visual, that emotional information, that connection is missing. I mean, you think about the meetings that we used to have around the table. We can't see that verbal responses between individuals around the table anymore. All that context is missing from our conversations. And this is what's exhausting for us, because we're trying to make sense of all this information and all this intelligence and all this data, and we just don't have that bandwidth to do that. So listening online, my 3 tips that I thought about when I thought about your question was, I've been turning my camera off a little bit more. I know I shouldn't, but I have been. And that allows me just to switch on my listening skills. And remember, I'm not sure if you can remember in the book that there was a little bit of research from Yale that I mentioned in regards to how listening really is, well, the research, their research showed that listening is much more powerful in picking up empathy rather than just visual, because you can hear in somebody's voice if they're nervous. You can hear if they're breathing quickly, or they sound, down and tired, or they're talking fast because, they're excited. So listening, to switch off your I know it's not probably protocol, but switch it off and listen to people. I think asking questions, fantastic. Get more of your listening online. Being curious, being interested in the people within the Zoom meeting, asking open-ended questions, a fantastic way to draw out more information and improve your listening. The questions of, what and how and tell me and why questions will always help you be more inquisitive and follow a line of inquiry so that you can draw more out of your participants in your meeting. And the third one is to use inclusive language. And this is really important, so that, because don't forget, I can only see you, I can't see everybody in the room, and we need to make everyone feel like they're part of the meeting. So shifting from I words to we words and me words to us words in your language will make everyone feel part of the meeting. So there are my 3 tips for listening online.
Thank you.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you, Alex. Please keep your camera on though. Right, we'll move on to Katie. Katie, please could you give your question to Alex?
Yes, hi Alex. First of all, I just need to tell you, I love how this book feels. It's so tactile. It's wonderful. And I think my question, it leads quite nicely on from Kate's actually. So it's a bit of a hypothetical question for, I think, somewhat in the future. But with more and more organizations creating great digital journeys and including the use of really good self-help functionalities, which I don't think many are there yet. Do you think that this is eventually going to inadvertently distance the customer from the organization and in turn reduce the perceived need for customer empathy within operational endeavors?
I think that we've been doing that since the corner shop. Because when we were at the corner shop, we went down there to get our groceries, and we had a really intimate relationship, one-on-one with the store owner. And then we wanted more convenience. And so we built supermarkets, and then we needed organizations to run those supermarkets. And we, controlled by productivity and efficiency and silos and divisions to help run those supermarkets. And so, the distance between our customer and serving our customer and connecting with our customer is growing steadily further and further apart. Think of our work environment now. We sit behind computers, we've got technology, we've got dashboards, we've got scores that represent our customers. Most people never speak to a customer or have never spoken to a customer. And yet we want them to be customer centric. Let's take another step further. We're now, because of COVID, taken everything onto our mobile phone. So now you can order your groceries. You don't have to see anybody in the supermarket. You click and collect it. It's delivered to the door. It can be left at the door. You don't even have to see had any interaction. So our relationship is being drawn out further and further, and we have less connection, less communication. Our customers are not visible. And so how might we, is the question, create visibility for our customers, not just our front customer-facing teams, but the rest of our organisation as well. How are we going to create differentiation between one brand and the next? If everything is through technology, are we going to make value or enhance value? So, I agree with you there. Where is that connection going to be in the future?
If anything, you've made it sound like empathy is going to be even more important.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I wonder how many humans are going to be involved in delivering.
Brilliant. A whole new topic of kind of ethical AI there, isn't there? But I feel the human interactions are so few and far between that if you get the chance to deliver one, boy, you've got to be the top of your game. Great. Thank you for that. Great.
Advantage.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Right, so Alicia, may I come on to you for your question, please, to Alex?
For sure. I thought, thank you for the book. It was great reading, and everyone said it was an easy read. It's very simple language and is enjoyable to read. And I love all the examples and the techniques that you include in your book. That helped a lot. But one of the things that I'm being interested these few weeks is connecting the customer experience with negotiation. So I wonder what kind of negotiation techniques do you use for customer empathy? Because, most of the time you need that change within the culture to that empathy trickle down from top to bottom up. So how would you use that?
I tried to put myself in your shoes. I thought, wow, this is a really tricky question and I really need lots more information to answer this. So I'm going to present, I thought through a couple of scenarios. I thought there are really two different call center extremes that I've come across. There's the sort of the Zappos, call best practice, customer-centric approach. It has a yes business culture and it empowers its frontline staff. And, one of its, it's noted for one of its customer service people spending over 10 hours, on a telephone with a customer to help them through. And then you've got the really extreme other end. And then, the calls are time capped. The KPIs are based on time caps. The rewards and recognitions are based on time caps. And the pressure on employees to get customers off the phone and the pressure on customers to try and get a solution just increases and increases and increases. So I think there's two scenarios there. I don't know if you're one or the other or you sit in between, but most organisations probably, are towards the time caps, and making their call centres, efficient and productive.
Excellent. Excellent.
I think, there's some base level things to do here. You're probably doing training, adding empathy training into your training. Role playing, you're probably doing some role playing, adding empathy role playing into that. Great way to help your call center teams. I'm a big advocate of mapping the customer journey. If your call center is having problems and they're having problems negotiating, that problem is a bottleneck that's come from upstream. And so by mapping your customer journey and using your customer experience journey then to map the service blueprint, you're going to understand where the problems are upstream and use it as a communication tool to help gauge and align the rest of the organisation around some of those problems.
Right.
What are some of the simple things that you can do?
That's great.
I mean, like, you know, because that's, you know, wow, I'd love to be doing that, Alex, but, you know, I'm in the call centre, and I think that I love the whole co-creating, co-working to dump the dumb rules. You know, call centre people are there at the front line every day. They're having to do workarounds to get the job done. They've got all this policy and procedure. Get them together, find out what are the rules that are stopping them doing their jobs, and how can you work in some flexibility around those policies and procedures. I used in the book personas and creating personas for different customer problems. So if you can do that journey mapping, or if you have a good idea in regards to the systemic problems within the organisation, why not create personas around that, and then do some training, empathy training around those personas on negotiation. It'll help, you know, embed some you know, ways in terms of connecting with customer problems. And I know your frontline teams are going to be very connected, but it just helps them put different problems in different buckets and gives them different ways and methods to deal with those problems.
Alex, that's
role playing. Okay.
So many ideas. That's brilliant.
Trying to
we said about your book, Alex, that you're so generous and charitable and just giving, and you know, you're just living the author here. So thank you so much for that. But I want to get to Sarah. So thank you, Alicia, for that question. Sarah, what's your question for Alex?
Hi, Alex. A little bit of background. So I essentially work for an events-based company, and we have one main event each year. So we kind of get one chance for the sort of like for making the experience right, or for one really big chance. So my question is, how should you cope or deal? And I don't think those are the right words, but they're not particularly professional, but I couldn't come up with better ones. So how could you cope or deal with someone who believes they're thinking about the customer, but are really just solving a problem in the cheapest, quickest or easiest way for themselves?
Okay, I'm thinking that this is either somebody else that's, you know, of equal around the table, or it's your boss. You don't have to tell me. So I've covered those, in my thinking, I've covered those bases. I'd like to just say to you, you know, just like most people think that or believe that they're good drivers, and most people think they're customer centric. So don't worry. It's really when we start to look at that customer centric behaviour that it holds the mirror up to, really they're not that customer centric, but that's, you know, one of the things that we have to deal with in organisations. I don't know if you can journey map and use that emotional graph in your journey mapping to help engage this person with how customers are feeling. That would be my first. Little things, if you're not able to do the journey mapping. I think helping that person be more, you know, thinking, feeling, doing what the customer is doing, what the customer's perspective. So can you put in your meetings the question after or before a decision is going to be made, what would our customer think about that decision? And enable the table to perspective take on that question. I think if you can get this person to go on a service safari and set up a service safari, and a service safari means that you're actually going to get that person to purchase a product, have a difficulty with that product, and try and get a resolution with the problem that they're having, and actually get them to step you know, on their own terms, like they're a customer. They have to use exactly how a customer would use all the interactions and the touch points. That's a very good method to aha moment. Get that person seated in the call center. Or if you're having a conference, One of the great tools is getting your ELT, getting your people that have never spoken to a customer to call a customer and ask them and talk to them about their experience. The voice on that end of the phone telling that experience is another light bulb moment. And if you possibly can do it, I think empathy mapping really shows how well a person knows and understands about their customer.
Excellent.
Because people who have got an empathy that really haven't done the deep dive into customer and made that connection, they won't have much story to tell on their empathy map. So there's 6 quick tips on how you know.
Thank you. It was not my boss. She watches this later.
Just got
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Alex, excellent advice. Thank you.
Some extra just in the emotion map, right? Like can be done by a group, right? Like it's not one person, or you do it like if it's a leader, maybe you do it to that person, and then you do it with your team, and you compare them, something like that. You can do that, right? Like,
are you talking about presenting the customer journey map?
Developing the actual empathy map, right? Like how the leaders see the customer empathy map, and how the team is seeing the customer. Yes. So and compare them. That will be like good.
Yes. Yeah. Can't forget that it's not a witch hunt though.
No, but for realize to see how the difference are, right? Like to
it helps them understand the deficit in their customer understanding.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's the good part of it. Yeah, it helps them understand that.
So we have, thank you, Alicia. We have one more question. Gary wasn't able to join us, but he recorded his question for you. So it's worked so far. We'll try this again, Alex. So here comes Gary.
So my question to Alex is: customer empathy is a really great way to kind of strive to get inside the customer mind and to take action based on how our customers are feeling. With the introduction of more artificial intelligence and more technology, perhaps removing some of our ability to empathize in a particular way through use of technology, how do you feel like that is going to impact the future state and how we approach delivering customer empathy with more use of technology and artificial intelligence, and how we can make the most of that in a digital world? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Gary. So similar, but I don't know if there's a different answer to this one, Alex. Similar to Katie's question.
Well, you're not going to believe what is happening right now. We have about 4 universities, very large universities, and at the moment they are recruiting thousands of people who are opting in willingly to capture human emotion. Now, what happens is that they share the same stimuli across all people, and then they record human response to this. Because artificial intelligence it learns, but it needs to learn from something. So it needs base human emotions to learn from. And so in the future, we will have machines that will intimately know our emotions, because they are capturing and decoding our eye movements and our voice patterns, and decoding subtle changes in our expressions. And so this will become a bigger and bigger and bigger database of human emotions. For example, there's a motor vehicle company called Affectiva Automotive, and they use artificial intelligence at the moment to respond to passenger moods, to determine the mood of the number of people in the car by how they're interacting with each other. And what the car will do is it will change heating, it will change cooling. If one of the passengers is falling asleep, the seatbelt will, wake them up. All sorts of ways to keep the passenger in, delivering. The car is delivering an improved experience for the customer. So it's not so much that humans are going to be, needing to be, evolving their empathy, but it's machines that are going to be evolving their empathy.
Excellent. Excellent. That'd be a really interesting space to see how that goes. And I'm sure there's lots of observers from an ethical perspective and many other dimensions as well in there.
Yeah. I'm not an AI expert by any means, but I'm interested in terms of how they're collecting data on customers or on people to create, more digital products and services.
And Alex, just to authenticate that you're calling us from, is it Melbourne you're in, from the middle of the night? I can see, is that your window outside we can see? The darkness outside?
Well, the curtains are down.
There we go. Thank you so kindly for taking the late evening out to join us. That concludes all of our questions. So it's been an absolute delight. I would like to, at this point, we offer up a gift to the question that we've enjoyed the most, and the one that I'm going to choose is one that actually we as a company at Clientship are looking at, because we have the same sort of worries and concerns. And it was the one put by Katie in terms of how the landscape's going to change going forward, and what that's going to mean in terms of, the importance of empathy and just how precious, and will it become one of those lost skills in the world of technology that we kind of figure out how to do that. So Katie, you're going to receive a copy of our next book club book as a gift, which is Alan Pennington's The Customer Experience book. So thank you very much for that. But Alex, thank you so much. We will all be writing a short review up on your book, and that will be published in My Customer. We'll ask you to make a comment against that. But hopefully, I'm not going to pose a question because I don't want to take the time up, but I couldn't put it down. Honestly, I don't feel like I have felt like that about Malcolm Gladwell with his business books, but most business books, I'm really glad to get to the end of the chapter and put it down. And I found myself not doing that. It was just so easy to read. And I felt like I got to know you. I felt you were coming off the page. And, as someone who needs to have the trust of the people you work with, it was the best business card I think I've ever seen. It was wonderful. Really, really good. And there's some things we're working on. I'd love to talk to you about in the future, a couple of projects, because you seem a kindred spirit in some respects. But I don't know if anyone else has any passing or final comments they want to make, but can we all possibly hold our book up? Have you got your book there by chance, Alex?
Any questions from the attendees?
There we go. So we can all kind of see our book. That's excellent. Thank you. Wonderful.
Now,
look, Ethan Hyden's got it. Ethan's got it. But I think we'll sort of wrap there. I'll let you go off to bed, I think, Alex. Is there a second book? Is there a second book? That's one of the things I asked.
This is my second book.
Yes, I know, but specifically on customer empathy, or are you tackling a new topic next?
I think I might tackle a new topic next.
Make sure the aesthetics, make sure it feels good.
Always.
Benefit, yeah.
Always. But I have to thank, before I go, everyone for your wonderful feedback on your book and sharing your experience of reading and your joys of reading the book. It very much is heartwarming for an author. I felt I went out on a bit of a limb in terms of talking about customer empathy in customer experience management practice. And so it's nice to have CX folk around and to discuss the merits of customer empathy in customer experience management practice. So I appreciate you taking the time to read it and then making comments and feedback, giving me feedback, and also posing your questions. So it's really appreciated.
No, it's been a joy.
And also for all those who are interested in mapping the customer journey, I'm about to launch my advanced customer journey mapping online course. It is self-paced so that it does travel well across the whole world. It's because it's self-paced learning, and it uses my signature learn by doing method, which means that you're actually doing exercises and the outputs of those exercises are used for the inputs of the next module. So I think that if you want to learn customer journey mapping, it's a fantastic course.
Excellent. More giving there. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. Well, look, we'll wrap. We'll let you head off. We're all, I think, very richer and grateful for the fact that you did tackle this difficult topic and not just tackle it, but created a narrative that was just so compelling and had us all kind of light bulb moments going off. Saying, oh, I've seen that before. So, you know, thank you for really bringing it off the page for us.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.